All right. Well, welcome to the first edition of I don't really know what I'm calling this podcast. I've got it up on the screen if you're watching a video. It says the 603 Real Estate Pod, but underneath it says until I come up with a better name, because this isn't going to be just about real estate. It's going to be about all kinds of topics, but I'm starting with real estate because it's what I know. And today I have a great first guest, Kevin Cooper from East Key Realty and the Coop Group, which is him and his wife. And we're just going to talk about building a business in real estate and see where it goes from there. So thanks for coming in, Kevin.
Well, thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. You know, something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is people in real estate failing very quickly. When I remember when I started, the stat was 83% of agents are gone within 5 years.
It's 87%.
87. Okay. Well, it gets even worse. And there's so many people who are in the business and aren't really doing it. We see, if you go and look at stats, it's like 50% of people have one or less sales or something like that. So, why is, I've been exploring, why is that? Where are people getting steered wrong? And one of the things I think is there's so much training and coaching and seminars that are all geared towards seven-figure incomes and building a big team and opening a brokerage and getting heavy into investing. And I think people are getting pushed too hard when they could really be comfortable doing so much less and still have a nice life and a nice income. So I was looking for agents that I know who are in that realm, doing well, but it's not, you're not selling your soul to the devil to be a multimillionaire. And it's funny, I was very happy when I put out the Facebook post looking for guests that you responded, because you were one of the first people years ago to kind of inspire me. And I think I told you this before, but we were doing a deal together. I had the buyer, you were the listing agent.
Hooksett.
And in Hooksett, yeah. And we were talking at the home inspection. I was pretty early in the business, and I was talking about how, I hate calling people, but you got to do it. And you said, I don't fucking call anybody. And I was like,
did I use
what?
the F-bomb?
I don't know. That's how I hear it in my head. That was the attitude behind it. Had that in there. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you were a good little Christian boy. But that was inspiring to me. Was like, oh, there's another way to build a business. And I started watching what you were doing. You were doing a lot of video content and spotlights on local businesses and stuff. And I was like, oh, there are other ways to get people to come to you without having to sit there and call people, which is miserable to me. Yeah. So I talked a lot there. Tell me about how you've built your business, what your philosophies are, where you get your clients to avoid calling people, to sit there and doing these follow-up calls, prospecting, all the things they tell us to do in training.
So let's start at the very beginning, right? So I came from the transportation industry, where I was managing FedEx for 10 years. I managed an armored car business for 10 years. And so I knew how to treat people, but I hated the corporate world, hated what I was doing. And I got into this it was a bet. And so when I started doing real estate, when I showed up at the office and said, I'm here to sell, I got my license, I didn't remember who I was. And there was no training. You just kind of got left in an office. And so I went deep down the rabbit hole and just started learning everything myself. And everyone was, like you said, buying Zillow leads. You're following all these people that are telling you how you should run your business, and that's exactly what I did. I followed those steps. I paid $3,000 a month for Zillow. I was paying $600 a month towards Realtor. I was in the office every day from 9 to 6. I was making phone calls, and I was miserable, and I wasn't selling squat.
Would you say you were more miserable than your past job?
Yeah.
Yeah, and making zero.
Making zero. Yeah. My first client was a friend of mine's daughter. It was someone I went to high school. Her daughter and her now husband were buying a house. They were my first client. So my friend gave me that first chance. And so I ended up helping her daughter and now husband buy a house. And then I sold her to family. And so I worked with that family, and they have since given me several referrals of business. And then I read the book, 7 Levels of Communication.
I just re-listened to that on Audible my second time through it.
I say I read it. I don't read.
Yeah.
I listen to it.
Yeah.
And best life-changing book I've ever listened to. And realized that I was selling a lot of real estate. I was spending a lot of money to try to buy people that didn't care if they worked with me, you, or Joe Schmo down the street. And I was neglecting all of these people, my friends that were referring and trusting me, and having their friends give me a call, their family give me a call and work with it. So I changed my whole business. I cut off Zillow, I cut off Realtor. It was like rip the cord off and I was done. And I don't look back.
Yeah, I think so many times people are afraid to move away. Once they've gotten into those sources, they're afraid to give it up. But it sounds like you weren't getting anything from it anyways. And that's been my experience with, I've been Zillow and Realtor.com also.
I was like a dog chasing my tail. Once they start calling you, you're like...
And they're not your people. They're not. You get the calls you get, you're like, I don't vibe with this person at all.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then you have to try to sell them. Whereas if you're working in your own network, those people are already people you would hang out with anyways. And then
you meet them at the house.
Yeah.
And they say, well, my realtor couldn't make it, so I figured I'd give you a
yeah.
call and see if you can come. Like,
yeah, brutal. And I've heard it's actually, people have been talking to me about Zillow leads, and it's gotten worse because now everybody's forced to sign with an agent after the settlement changes for the most part. I mean, they can avoid it, but most of the agents are, once they get somebody, they're getting them signed. So it used to be with Zillow, people would meet 3 or 4 or 5 different agents sometimes before they committed to somebody. And now it's just not happening because you're getting asked to sign a buyer agency agreement immediately. So that the Zillow leads are actually getting worse. I had a Zillow rep text me one day, and he was like, "What?" And something was like, "What would it take you to get you back?" And I'm like, "I don't know, like 30 leads a month for under $1,000." He's like, "Give me a zip code." And like 5 minutes later, he's like, "Yeah, no, that's never happening." I'm like, "Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah,
I know your pricing." He's like, "I'm like, it's just not worth it anymore." He's like, he actually, I think he was maybe on the way out the door of Zillow because he was like, "Yeah, I agree."
Yeah, there's people I know that are spending $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 a month. On Zillow ads.
That's unreal.
They do a lot of business.
Yeah.
But they are like, it's like chasing, it's like I said, the dog chasing its tail.
You have to work so hard for it. I remember I had a 6-month with Realtor.com. I only closed 1 deal, made it technically profitable, but I was 2 hours a day calling those leads they were giving me. I think at the time it wasn't even, they weren't exclusive leads. They were going out to everybody.
Yeah.
So it was like, 5 agents were, or whatever they had for each zip code, were getting those leads. It was just like, spend 2 hours calling them. I had probably 200 leads. They're still in my CRM today. They were labeled as Realtor.com because it goes in automatically. But it's like, I got 1 deal in hundreds of hours of work. It just doesn't make any sense.
I did sell several, but it was so much more work and less enjoyable than it was working with friends, family, your sphere of influence, and people that wanted to work with you.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that way all the time, and I tell people that all the time. Don't go spending the money. I got into Tom Ferry coaching when I started.
Yeah.
And so that was for 2 half-an-hour meetings a month. That was like $700. And they give you this whole, well, you have access to our network and this, that, the other thing. It's like none of it's.
What does that get you?
None of it's valuable. And then they're like, okay, well, now you need 5 pillars of lead sources. It's like every single one of them costs money. So it's like they got me into doing internet leads. So they were the ones that got me into Realtor.com. Then it was you got to start circle prospecting or calling expires or whatever. So I needed Vulcan 7 at $300 a month, or I think maybe even more than that. Start doing Facebook advertising. And that was, it's like I'm spending $2,000 a month to work. And I wasn't really making it yet, It's like now I got producer Nick over here. I'm paying for the day to spend with me. I can do it now. But when you're starting, it's crazy to say, hey, invest $4,000 into this thing that 87% of people are failing at is crazy every month for months.
Well, I'm a firm believer in coaching. I think that everybody in a trade should work with some coaching at some point. I did work with Jared James Coaching. He paired me up with somebody that didn't really have the same values I had. So her push was call expireds, call for sale by owners. I am not that guy because I don't want people calling me.
Yeah. I feel the same way when I'm making calls
So then
like
every
that.
2 weeks when I had to call what I was lying with, I'm like, I called 10 people.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of months, I'm like, why am I paying?
You're paying somebody to lie to
$600
them
a month so I can just bullshit them.
Makes no sense. Yeah, I felt that way too. A lot of the times, it's like, okay, I'm like fudging what I'm doing. They want you to report back to them. That doesn't. So that they say it's like for accountability or whatever. It doesn't. I don't feel accountable to this guy I'm paying. Like, I don't care what you think of me. I had the similar experience. The first coach they gave me with Tom Ferry, he kept telling me, like, he's like, why didn't you make your calls today? And I'm like, well, I had all these problems with these transactions going on. So don't worry about it. So what do you mean, don't worry? That's my job, is to make sure my clients get to the closing table. Nope, the lender will take care of it. The title company will take care of it. The buyers will figure it out on their own. Somebody else in the process will deal with it. And I'm like, that is the worst attitude to have. People aren't paying me. And what I've realized is when you act that way, your business doesn't come back.
Yeah.
You're constantly having to find new leads. I don't know about you, it sounds like it, but I'm at the point where I do go find new leads because I want to grow, but I don't really need to. There's enough coming in to support me because I've treated people right in the past, because they were happy with what I did. Yeah. Do you feel like you're at that point too? I mean, you just told me before we started that you haven't been really doing a lot of your normal marketing stuff.
Yeah,
but it seems like you're still busy.
Yeah, we've, knock on wood, and very fortunate. We've had a very good year, and I've been consistent like that for the past 13 years. But this year I'm going to do some more things. I get back into the things that I did that kept my face out in front of people. Years ago I was doing a lot of videos. And I kind of go through that roller coaster, right? You do a bunch, and you don't do a bunch, and then you do some more. And I have not been as consistent as I need to be. And I can see when I'm not consistent, when I'm not doing them. You can watch the trends of your business slow down, speed up. You could probably verify that with. Yep. I think I had a conversation with you one time about that.
Yeah. We don't really see the one for one on that type of marketing. Because it's, you pay for a Zillow lead, you get this many leads, you can easily count how many you converted, right? But when you're putting out content, when you're doing, I've seen you and Danielle go to like a restaurant and do a review on it. It's like, it's not even about real estate, but it's getting the eyeballs on you. And when you're doing that, you can't really tell like when that person comes to you, is it because they watch this video or that video or all the videos. And I'll get people all the time that come up to me and go, hey, I can't wait to buy a house. I've been watching all your stuff. I love all your tips. And I didn't even know they were following me, and so it's very hard to see the results of that labor. And I think it is very easy to go, I'm just not going to do it because it's not doing anything anyway. But like you said, when you really think about it, when you stop doing it, it starts going away. And I also feel like by just putting stuff out into the world, whatever it is, like just giving it your all and going out there every day and doing something, it might not be, a one-for-one translation of that thing you're doing, but just putting that energy and effort into it comes back to you somehow. And I'm not a religious guy, but I think there is some sort of spiritual push out there in the world that, it's the secret thing, which is corny as hell, but it is, that is real to me. I feel it. Like I'll get working on stuff and I'll be like, this is doing nothing. And then 2 or 3 days later, stuff will start coming to me that has nothing to do with the work I did. So I just feel like there is some power out there that's controlling. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we get calls from people that have watched some of our videos for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I just closed one in Amherst a couple of months ago, and he had watched a video of mine 2 years ago and just kind of followed and reached out of the blue. And he goes, "You don't know me." He goes, "I feel like I know you, and you may not want to work with me because I'm very difficult." He goes, "But I'd like to work with you." I'm like,
that's funny. The people that say that they're difficult usually aren't. If they have enough awareness to know that they're difficult, they'll usually reel it in a little bit. Like you'll see what they meant, but like they usually know how to reel it in. It's the people who think they're complete saints that are always the problem. Which that was kind of something I wanted to talk about. So it's a great lead in. What's the most difficult things you've dealt with as a real estate agent, or like one example of like just like the craziest like challenge, frustration? I don't think a lot of people, from the outside looking in, they see us just driving around, looking at houses, talking to people, filling out a Mad Lib once in a while, and it can be very, very stressful and affect your life and your health in some ways. So do you have any examples of just the craziest thing you've dealt with?
I might get a lot of hate for this,
Yeah, that's fine.
but the most difficult things that I have in real estate are other realtors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I can tell you, I was working with this couple.
This could be a 3-hour podcast now that you open that.
We're going to leave names out of it. We're going to call her BB because that's her initials. And I still keep the voicemail. And so this was many, many years ago. I was working with this couple for probably 4 months. And they went to an open house. And they called me up and said, Kevin, we want to put in an offer for it. I'm like, great. Typed it all up, talked about the offer, sent it over to the agent. She calls me up that night and leaves me a voicemail. I'll play you the voicemail after all this. I don't want people here to hear it. She goes, Kevin, this is BB. She goes, I got your offer. It is invalid.
Like, invalid. Interesting.
Invalid.
That's
She
a
goes,
weird.
I asked them to their face if they were working with somebody, and they told me no. I called her back, and I'm like, it was an open house. You allowed people to come in to the open house, and now you're going to try to get procuring cause, they call it.
Yeah.
I said, they're my clients. Did you submit the offer? I'm not submitting the offer. I said, then I'll call the board.
Yeah, that's.
They bought another house.
You know what? When you're saying that, so the first things I think about when we talk about agents being difficult, and that is probably one of the biggest problems. You're right, is just resistance to getting things done, like coming up with reasons why things won't work or why it's impossible. Yeah. And you know, you've been around a lot longer than me, and it tends to be the older agents. They get, you know, one thing in their head.
What's the comments on the older agents?
It's not
because I'm a month away from being able to buy in the 55 park. All right,
but it's not the age. It's the experience. It's the years in the business where they've seen things that were problems in the past. Like if you've done 1,000 transactions, you've seen the worst of the worst things happen, and you think it's going to happen every time. And I think we need to move that out of our head. It's like, that's not going to happen every time. Like, and you know, a lot of agents like guessing at what can be financed. You know, what you see these listings, no FHA or VA, and you look at it, you're like, why? Because there's a little bit of chip paint. And did you ask your seller if they were okay with you marketing in that way? Because if you didn't, you just cut off a whole bunch of buyers for them, and now you're not doing your job of getting the best price for them. So, there's so much resistance of you know, are things going to work? Can you get this financed? Can this buyer afford it? When it's like, open your mind and see if we can make it work. Especially, you know, look, it's going to if the house has 47 offers, like, okay, but we don't need to talk about the difficult FHA loan, right? We don't not that FHA loans are difficult, but we don't need to talk about the person that's doing FHA, needs seller paid closing costs, is doing it with the minimum down payment, it can't cover an appraisal problem, like all these things. Like, I get it, but if a house has been sitting on the market 3 weeks and I'm coming to you with my FHA buyer, and the only reason you don't want to sell it to an FHA buyer is because of chipped paint, what are we doing here? Like,
how many walls have you painted in your years? So
no walls, lots of trim.
Yeah.
Trim and like doors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I've had to. I had one recently. I never even realized that they would flag interior paint. It's always been exterior for me, and I didn't even. I guess I say recently. It was like a year ago, but it was an FHA loan, and it was a pre-1978 house. So the appraiser called out interior flaking paint because it could be chipped lead paint. I always thought the chipped paint thing was just to protect the exterior of the house. I never even knew that could be called out, but that I ended up painting a lot outside of the house. The seller did the inside, but yeah, it's. Why wouldn't we make good money when we close? It's a good amount. The median price point in New Hampshire is $500,000. 2% is a very, I'm not going to say normal commission.
Don't get me going.
Or average.
Now we just added 4 hours to this call.
But it's, you know, if you're collecting $10,000, sometimes $15,000, you can't be bothered to spend an hour painting something or moving something for a client, or you can't spend $150 to have a trash removal guy come, or it's like, it pisses me off so much.
We do it all the time.
When I see agents just resist just getting the job done. And it's like, one of our agents at Eastkey called me when Crystal was just gone on our cruise, and she was asking me, what she should do in a situation. And it was a debate of, is she going to give up some of her commission to cover something? And I was like, hey, by how much time are you going to save by just saying, yes, I'll give up my commission. How many more deals can you go find in that time? If this deal falls apart and you get zero, would you have rather given up that $500 or whatever it was? Like, I mean, there's so many reasons to just say, yeah, I'll just pay my own money and get this done. And, we don't want to always do it. We don't want to make that the first solution.
No, but sometimes it just needs to be done. It needs to be
it's
done.
We make plenty of money on each one of these deals.
Yeah, it's a business decision.
And there was this, thing going around right when the lawsuit was going through the courts. It took me like 10 minutes to read it. It was just this rant of like all the like complaints that a realtor has, like, oh, you don't know that person had to miss their kid's soccer game or all this stuff. And it's like, okay, they didn't. They chose to. If they missed the soccer game, they chose to do it. Nobody has to do anything, first of all. You can give up that business anytime you want to give it up, And I always say it to my clients. They'll be like, oh, sorry to drag you out at 9 p.m. or 7 p.m. on a Sunday. And I'm like, yeah, but Tuesday I was at the park with my kid. We went to Canopy Lake. It's like, you don't need to be sorry. Like, it's a very flexible life. I take vacation whenever I want. Sometimes still make money while I'm there.
I get my answer to people when they say sorry for ruining your after hours or your weekend. I'm like, listen, I work when people are off.
Yeah.
When you can see a house, I'm going to take you.
And the added benefit that nobody ever talks about is when I need to go to a store or anything, when I need to get anything done, I'm going when it's not busy. I don't have to deal with like we do. My family does Friday night dinner at 4 p.m. We go out for dinner. I've never had to wait for a table since my kid's been born because we go out.
4 p.m. dinners. That's another old joke.
That is a very old person. I'm very old in a lot of ways. I still have a hard time doing dot loop on my phone. So I'm an ancient guy in a lot of ways, technology wise.
So you used to do videos a lot.
Yeah.
Or you did some. I don't know if it was a lot, but what made you stop?
I never really stopped. I stopped producing high quality, overproduced stuff, which I'm starting. This is part of it. We're on 3 cameras right now. Trying to get back into doing that sort of thing. But I got very busy. 2020 and 2021, like a lot of us, was absolutely insane, and I really wasn't ready for it. And that's when I was starting to really ramp up that stuff. And then I was like, I don't have time. I can't manage the needs of my clients and go spend 8 hours on a video shoot in the same day, And it was expensive. It was, I don't have the skills you do to do it all myself. So I was, paying a videographer and, I realized though that like, I didn't need to do the really formal, like high-end stuff all the time. And I've just gone to a lot of just my phone in front of my face and do a 90-second clip of something that I learned or experienced that week. I try to, as I'm going through transactions and dealing with people, I'll think about, what went wrong, how could I make it better, and then how can I inform my audience about that thing so if they run into those problems, because I don't really get hung up on if my friends and family use me. I don't know how you feel about that. A lot of agents you see memes all the time about, I thought I had a friend and then they used another realtor. It's like, your friend's job isn't to support your business. Your job is to make it worth it for them to use your business. And if they don't, that's your fault, in my opinion.
I had one of my first brokers tell me, says, because I got upset and I got over that quick. He said, Kevin, everybody knows a dozen.
Yeah.
You're one of 12 people they know. Yeah. You don't know if it's their cousin, their mother's best friend, their grandmother.
Yeah.
Just like, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's I remember there was something in the Tom Ferry coaching, and one of the scripts was like, talk about objection handlers, which I hate that term so much. Like, you mean convincing people to do things they don't want to do, or maybe shouldn't even do? Like, that's like what an objection is. Like, yeah, sometimes we need to help people get over the hump when they're, making decisions that are against their own interests. But anyways, one of the objections was, I have a friend, family, whatever, that's an agent. And their response was to tell people that you shouldn't work with family because it clouds judgment and all this. And then in the next section, they were talking about how to get your friends and family to use you.
Isn't that funny?
Well, which one is it then? Should they work with me or shouldn't they?
Yeah. There is enough real estate business to go around.
Yeah.
For me to hold grudges on friends, family, for using someone else for whatever their reason is. And I call them up, say best of luck, hope it works out well. Congratulations on your new home.
Yep.
Hopefully your home sells quickly. Let me know if I can help with anything.
Yep. Yeah, I've had people choose a different agent, then still ask me for advice or, whatever, second opinion, and I'm happy, whatever. It's not their job to fill my pockets. I actually had a client a couple years ago. I wrote 13 offers as a buyer's agent, and they said, hey, we want to go a different direction. This doesn't seem to be working. And how can I argue after writing 13 offers? I don't really think it was my fault. It's just they were a difficult situation, and the market was hot at the time, and then the low budget, But when I got my mortgage license, she contacted me to talk about a refinance because, and I think we never really talked about it, but I think it's because when they did get a house, I congratulated them. I texted them both and said, really happy for you, glad it worked out. And it's like, but what about, it was like maybe a $350,000 house. Like, yeah, $7,000 is a lot of money, but it's not life-changing money. And they didn't take it from me. I didn't get them a house, So you're not a real flashy guy.
Jeans and a T-shirt most of the time. If I get flashy, I'll put a sport coat over this.
Yeah, you drive a pickup truck. I don't think there's a watch on your wrist, is there?
There is. I got a smartwatch.
Okay, smartwatch. Yeah. What do you think about the image of realtors, like especially here in New Hampshire? It's like you go to any open house and how many Mercedes, BMWs, and Teslas are out there.
It's a running joke,
and it's like. My mind is like, I don't think people of New Hampshire particularly want to see that because they just think you're just looking for you're just trying to make the next Rolex, the next gold chain or whatever.
It sets up in their mind of what the stereotype of a realtor is, makes a bunch of these shows. What was it, selling Vegas or whatever those stupid shows are. Is people trying to fill those shoes is what they see you as. Yeah. I've never had anybody make fun of my pickup truck.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, it's the most useful and just generic thing to drive. Yeah. It's no flash, but it's very useful.
So I know my audience and I know when I have to dress a different way, but mostly, and I'm that way in my video. I am who I am. And another reason I put those out is so people can make up their mind if they want to work with me.
Yeah.
Before they come and meet me. And I made a video one time of 5 reasons I might not be the realtor for you. And it was
nice.
I wear jeans all the time. Yeah. I might have dog hair on my shirt. I got dogs.
Yeah, I don't know. I put on khakis today, which is this is literally the only pair I own. And I don't know why, because everything we're doing is from the waist up. Like I shot some videos with Nick before here, and it was like from chest up. So I don't know why I even put on the khakis, but I just felt like it was a day I needed to be a little bit more fancy than usual.
I had to be a little more fancy, so I bought some darker jeans.
Nice, yes, yeah. And you got the branded T-shirt. It's great too. Yeah, you gotta have.
Thanks to Gary Chartier.
Nice.
Over in Hooksett.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we started to talk about things that stress you out, and I was trying to lead into you had a heart attack not long ago, and I've been really looking at my health a lot lately, and I think a lot of people in our industry there's kind of two things: either they're abusing the hell out of themselves, or they're hyper fixated on fitness and health, and there's not a lot of middle ground, and we can be a very high stress environment sometimes. And now you really need to avoid that, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you cope with the stress? How do you keep yourself healthy when you're in such a busy environment, very unpredictable, dealing with a lot of people's problems all the time?
Well, I try to work out. I don't get there as much as I should. If you ask my wife, I do not get there as much as I need to. Try to eat healthy, and I try not to. Years ago, real estate deals would, the stressful parts, I'd get really stressed out over. But I think back in the days in the corporate world where I had to carry a gun, I had to wear a vest, and I had to manage 150 people that were also carrying guns and vests. I'm like, real estate's not that stressful. Mm. So I just...
Interesting.
I got my level to come down. The heart attack really made me look at things a lot different.
Yeah.
It was not a fun night.
No, I can't imagine. I can't imagine it being fun in any way.
No.
I mean, I hate doctors and hospitals to begin with.
I hate them worse now.
So yeah, I'm sure.
That's another podcast.
So interesting you say that. It's to me because I don't know why, but thinking of just being with a bunch of people with guns doesn't stress me out, but somebody being homeless does. That's what that's what always gets me when people don't take things seriously or don't do what they're supposed to do in real estate, is that the consequences of our actions could literally be to somebody doesn't have a place to sleep that night. And it's like most people have the means to go get a hotel or family to stay with. It's not literally they're going to be out on the streets, but just when I move, even if things go well, my stress level is high for a long time, just getting accustomed to my new environment. So to have something completely go wrong where somebody can't move into their new house or loses the house they thought they were getting, that stresses me out more than anything. I've gotten, it took me 7 years, but finally I think I can separate myself from it and sleep at night when the things go wrong. But
for me, it's like the 3 or 4 days leading up to the closing.
Yeah.
That's when I'll start feeling that stress pick up.
Yeah.
But I put a lot of things in place to help me keep track of things.
Yeah.
If you don't have a transaction coordinator, you should have one.
Yeah.
If you don't want to spend the money for one and you use Dotloop, set yourself up a transaction coordinator in there so that every day you get an email from Dotloop saying this is what you got to do today, this is what you got to do this week. Pair up with good people, a lender you can trust. A title company you can trust, but have a couple different title companies, a couple different lenders you can trust, and have a good team, a good core that all has the same, fundamental principles of getting that deal to the closing table. They're making that homeowner happier or helping that seller move to the transition to the next phase of their life.
Yeah, I've said that a million times to you always recommend a lender, and I am one now. I'll keep repeating that, but you recommend a lender to somebody, and they think you're getting kickbacks or you're just trying to hook up your buddy. Or it's like, no, it's less stressful.
Yep.
It's better for everybody if you go to somebody I already know that can operate. I worked with Matt Family for years. He's at Fairway Mortgage. And I would just say I don't have to think about it again. I don't have to. And it's like other, some of these big national brands. It's like calling that loan officer every other day to figure out what's going on. They're not telling me that, and then day before we're supposed to have commitment, they tell me they're not going to be ready. Day before closing, they're telling me they're not ready to close. It's like that's why we recommend people. And the same thing with title companies. It's like you go to and title is a fairly simple linear thing. Not to diminish what they do, but it's like I feel like there's less variation between the title companies.
Not all equal.
But they're not all. They are not all equal. But I think I see less catastrophes on the title side than the mortgage side. The mortgage side's where it can go wrong so quick.
It's the communication of each of them to me and within the triangle that makes it so much smoother.
Yeah.
Lack of communication is the worst.
Yeah. Or not know, like sometimes there's communication and it's bad communication. Like you send an email and they like with 3 or 4 questions, they answer one of them. Or they're addressing things that aren't important or aren't relevant. It's like sometimes it's too much. There's a bunch of communication. I find that when you deal with big teams where there's like you're dealing with like 12 different people on this team and it's like whose job is who? You have no clearly defined roles. I'm getting 3 of the same emails from 3 different people. And
I referred a past client to a team out in Michigan, and I got to do better at that because they weren't expecting it to be a big team, so they never worked with the same person, and it didn't fit their wants and needs, and so they ended up going with somebody else, and I looked like an idiot.
Yeah, that happened to me up in Maine with one of my cousins. They, I didn't even know the guy that I referred to had a team. They said that he came and did the listing presentation, never saw him again. Yeah. They were like, we wanted to work with him, not his other 12 people on his team, So, this went by very fast. Nick flashed up a 30-minute sign not long ago. I was planning on keep making these around 30 to 45 minutes. But one thing I just want to get to outside of real estate is and I guess it does relate to real estate, what makes New Hampshire a great place to live to you? Obviously, the world thinks it. We're right outside of Manchester. That was one of the it's been the hottest market, like, what is it, 35 of the last 40 months according to Realtor.com. So obviously we're in a great place to live. What makes it a great place to live to you?
If you're in the Manchester area, within an hour, you could do anything. You can be in the nightlife in Boston. There's nightlife in Manchester. You can be 40 minutes to the coast at the beach, an hour. You get up in the mountains. No matter where you are, you're an hour from anything you want to do.
Yeah.
It's the prettiest state in the country to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree, and that's the same exact when I've been asked that question, same exact answer, for sure. That's exactly how I feel, and I moved to Manchester. I moved to Concord area about 20 years ago, but in Manchester a little over, maybe it's like 13 now. Mm-hmm. But like as soon as I got here, I realized that I was like, this is the perfect central location for everything. And I'll wrap it up on that note. I'd actually love to do this again. I didn't realize how quickly it would go by. But I plan on doing a couple episodes a week forever now. Or not a week, a month. 2 episodes a month. Eventually,
he's already committed.
Yeah. Nick's like, that sounds like money to me. But yeah, no, so we'll do it again sometime. But thank you so much for coming in and sharing some of your experience with me.
Well, thanks for having me. I'd love to come back.